The Fosun era. It's been an era of smiles, enjoyment, laughter, and probably some of the best football we've seen in recent years, certainly in my lifetime as a Wolves fan. But it didn't start off quite that way. Cast your minds back to the 6th of August 2016, where we played Rotherham and we played out a 2-2 draw. Of course, this was Fosun's first game in charge of the club, Walter Zenga as manager. Plenty of excitement going into the season. We had a pretty disjointed pre-season. I remember Kenny Jackett was sacked. Rob Edwards took over for a 4-0 defeat against Swansea in a pre-season friendly. And then Walter Zenga came in, called Wolves the biggest club in Italy, and we were on our way to a relegation battle. And he was sacked, and then we got Paul Lambert. So, yeah, not the most successful first season, but today we are going to be looking at the first Fosun Wolves 11. We're going to be taking a look at where they are now in their footballing careers. I'm Tom from Talking Wolves, and I hope you enjoy this video. So, starting in goal, we have Carl Ikeme, who is, of course, retired. Unfortunately, had to retire because of his battle with leukemia, which he thankfully beat. And do you know what? I don't think any Wolves fan could probably speak highly enough of how good of a person Carl was and how good of a player he was as well. One of the only real consistent performers over the years since the League One season, you know, constantly performing to quite a high level. You know, he was probably, for me, when I remember watching us in that sort of period of football, one of the better goalkeepers in the Championship. Certainly one of the better goalkeepers in League One. I mean, he got a Team of the Season card, I think, in like FIFA 14 or something, for any of you nostalgic FIFA players out there. But yeah, I mean, he was a top bloke on and off the field. I remember having a conversation with him after a pre-season friendly against Real Betis about the Tiger Woods PGA golf game, which was quite interesting. Just a 5-10 minute conversation about that. He was very down to earth, always had time for the fans, and he was a fantastic performer as well. So yeah, you know, all of our best wishes go out to Carl. He still has a great reception when he comes back as well. So yeah, a shame the way his career ended. He got called up for Nigeria as well, which was a big deal. But he had a fantastic season this year, and of course, probably would have played under Nuno, I reckon. So yeah, all the best goes out to Carl. He was a fantastic goalkeeper. Right, up next is probably one of the more interesting players, Dominic at right back. He's currently playing for Sheff Wednesday, who are obviously in the midst of a bit of a financial crisis and a relegation battle in the Championship. But when this guy first came through at Wolves, everyone thought he was going to be a Premier League quality fullback. Burst onto the scene, really, in Micah Richards' style, believe it or not. Defenders can burst onto the scene. And it was in the playoff pushing season, obviously when we were pushing for the Championship playoffs. Came in under Kenny Jackett and was absolutely brilliant. Up and down the byline, so much energy, so much pace and guile. And I think a lot of us thought, you know, this kid is really going to go on and push on and do have a good career. I remember saying to my dad that him and Hause would end up playing for England. I think I was fairly wrong there. They did play for the under-21s, but yeah, struggled really this season though. After his really bright start, his inconsistencies started to show, and he sort of fell further and further down the pecking order. And when Nuno came in, he was sort of pushed out of the squad really. So yeah, not a brilliant end to him to his Wolves career, but he's done okay at Sheff Wednesday. I think he won Players or Fans Player of the Season. Quote me if I'm wrong. I do apologise if I'm wrong. So he's had an okay career, but maybe not quite as good as we would have hoped. Right, up next is the captain at the time, Danny Batth, the first of the two centre-backs in this side. I think you can probably guess the other. He's currently at Stoke, who are competing for the Championship playoffs this year, despite really struggling last year. There's a bit of a Wolves contingent going on at Stoke at the moment. It's a bit of a strange one. He's a superb player for the club at times. I think that there was very much a split in the fan base about how good he was defensively. He was prone to mistakes, but he was a good captain. He was a good leader, local lad. Brilliant in the League One title-winning season. But I think at times looked like he wasn't going to be good enough to really push us to get back into the Premier League. And he was obviously sort of edged out when Nuno came in. But fantastic player, fantastic captain for the club for quite a few seasons under Kenny Jackett. Walter Zenga and Paul Lambert in that season as well. So not really a bad word to say about him. He just wasn't quite good enough when Nuno came in. Right, up next is Kortney Hause, who is playing in the Premier League at the moment with, of course, Aston Villa. We sold him to Villa for about 3 million, which is a pretty decent profit. I think we signed him for 100,000, a couple of 100,000, maybe less than that. It might have been 50,000. I can't quite remember. I remember reading the article about it. We signed him from Wickham. Young, promising player. Again, brought through by Kenny Jackett, who did well with those young players. Again, the problem was inconsistency. He was far too inconsistent alongside Danny Batth, prone to mistakes. And despite a promising start, again fell down the pecking order. He struggled with injuries as well when Nuno came in and saw his game time limited. Brought out a couple of okay rap songs. I'm not sure whether too many Wolves fans actually heard them. Decent player. He's carved out a good career for himself at Aston Villa. He's put in some good performances for them. He's well respected there as well. I think sometimes just gets forced out the side by the form of Ezri Konsa and Tyrone Mings. But yeah, he's had a good career for himself and he's doing pretty well. I think he's a solid Premier League centre-back. So yeah, not too bad for him. Right, up next is a player that up until this summer was the only player in this side to still be playing for the team currently, and that is Matt Doherty, who of course was sold to Spurs this summer. 10 years at the club, signed for 75,000 from Bohemians under Mick McCarthy, as we all know, as it was pointed out so much on social media, because we sold him on for 12 million and we got so much out of him as a player. Played left back this season, and I remember quite a few fans, along with Connor Cody, he was one of the sort of players that Wolves fans were like, yeah, we might as well just sell them. But Nuno completely transformed him at right wing back. It was absolutely superb, and he improved season on season for us. I think his work rate was probably what got in the way of him in the end. Just too lazy at points getting back. If he lost the ball high up the pitch, he wouldn't get back quick enough, and I think that was sort of his downfall. But I don't think we'll ever forget some of the moments he gave us. The goal in the FA Cup semi-final. I know we don't talk about it a lot, but what a moment that was at the time. And he came with some huge goals, winner against Newcastle, goals in Europe as well. He was always that right place at the right time, getting that run into the back post, there for the headers, and creating goals as well. So yeah, he is missed at the moment. We got a lot out of him for how much we paid for him. And, I think despite some of the fans maybe not being as receptive to or as warm to him as we were before, I think he was certainly a fantastic player for us. Right, up next is another cult hero, another fan's favourite. It's Dave Edwards, who currently plays for Shrewsbury Town, his hometown club. And Dave Edwards was a player that sort of split opinion. I call him a fan's favourite because a lot of fans loved him, but he was very much sort of, again, sort of a 50-50 player. You either loved him or you didn't really rate him too much. A lot of fans thought he sort of ran around like a headless chicken. A lot of fans loved his work rate, and he did get some important goals for us. He got double figures in a couple of seasons, and he was one of those players that would just pop up with a goal when we needed it the most. He was reliable. He was an excellent character in the dressing room. Personally, I really liked him. I thought it was a shame to see him go to Reading for, I think it was about £1 million, which isn't too bad, to be fair. Didn't really do much at Reading. Struggled to get into the side, and now he's playing for Shrewsbury, which is nice to see for him to return to his hometown club. But always a fantastic servant and a fantastic player to have around the dressing room. And I think a lot of fans will hold a lot of warmth for him, despite maybe the split when he was actually playing. But yeah, fantastic player, Dave Edwards. Really, really liked him. He just didn't really fit the Nuno style when Nuno came in. And I think a lot of fans probably thought that would be the case. I don't think many people thought that he was going to stay under Nuno. So yeah, a real shame to see him go. But he was a fantastic servant for us. So I'm sure Wolves fans will remember him fondly. So up next is Lee Evans, the Welshman we signed from Newport, came into the side in the League One season and showed a lot of potential. Very similar theme with some of these players, but he showed a lot of potential in central midfield. Scored a goal, I think, on the opening day against Gillingham, and he played a really important role in us winning the League One title. Slowly dropped down the pecking order and had a few loan spells. He went to Bradford, I think he was at Sheffield United, Wigan, a couple of spells there, and then he permanently signed for Wigan, where he is still applying his trade. So yeah, very much I think a Championship, upper League One quality central midfielder. So not quite hitting the heights that maybe we thought he would, but he was a brilliant little player for us in the League One season and in the subsequent Championship seasons. He had some good spells for us, but yeah, yet again, running with the theme really. When Nuno came in, he just wasn't up to the standard. Right, up next is an interesting one. It is George Saville, who was divided opinion. He was a decent central midfielder, but very inconsistent. I remember he was very promising at Brentford the season that we were competing with them to go up, and we signed him. And he was involved in the starting 11. He played fullback a few times under Paul Lambert, I think. Some strange decisions in that season. What a chaotic season that was. We sold him on to Millwall for £500,000, and then they sold him on to Middlesbrough for £8 million. £8 million for George Saville. Now, no disrespect to George Saville if you're watching this, probably isn't. But, I mean, that was a hell of a lot of money. I don't know how Millwall managed to get that much out of him from Middlesbrough. I mean, a lot of Wolves fans were certainly confused. I was confused about it. You know, when he was playing for us, he certainly wasn't an £8 million player. If you consider that we paid £5 million for Joao Moutinho and Middlesbrough paid £8 million for George Saville, I think that probably shows either how good George Mendes is or just how messed up the market can be sometimes for British players. But yeah, he was a decent player, but he never really set the world alight in his 50 appearances. I don't think he was ever going to last under Nuno, to be honest. But he's doing alright in Middlesbrough, got a hefty transfer fee paid for him, so whether you consider that a success or not is probably up to you. Right, up next is a player that I'm very disappointed didn't work out, to be honest, and it's Jed Wallace, who is currently playing for Millwall. I remember when we signed this guy, I was so excited. He scored a stupid amount of goals for Portsmouth in League Two and was a very promising player. I thought, he's definitely Championship quality, but he just never worked out for him. He was just didn't work out. I'm not really sure what happened. He didn't fit into the system or the formation properly. He wasn't really favoured by Jacket. Didn't play that much under Zenga either or Lambert. And in the end, we sold him off to Millwall, where he's still playing. I think he had a loan spell there and was really good for them, and then they permanently signed him. And he's actually been good for Millwall as well. Him and George Saville both went there, I think, at the same time, as well as another player that I'm going to mention in a second. But yeah, he was a bit of a fan's favourite at Millwall, good player, but just never really worked out for him at Wolves. I don't know why. He just didn't really fit into the system that well. So a real shame, because he was a fantastic player for Portsmouth when they won the title, and I genuinely thought he would be a winger to push us towards the playoffs again, but it just wasn't meant to be. Right, up next, fans' favourite, real fans' favourite, John Daddy Bodvarsson. What a cult hero this guy was. The Icelandic clap, of course, off the back of the Euro 2016 summer tournament, where Iceland really took over the sort of the celebration and the chant scene with their Viking clap. And of course we signed Bodvarsson, who actually played in the Icelandic team that beat England. But yeah, it didn't quite work out for him on the pitch. He was a hard worker, fantastic work rate, constant. Nuno would love him as a pressing forward, if any of you play Football Manager. But goal return, and that's what you want from a striker, and he just didn't get enough goals. Scored a fantastic goal against Rotherham off the bench, and then another really good goal against Birmingham in that 3-1 away win as well. For those of you who remember that, I'm sure most of you do. So yeah, had some real, hero moments. Could have scored against Liverpool as well, was unlucky not to. I think he ran about 60 yards and then mishit his shot. But yeah, he'll always be remembered for the chant or the clap more than anything. After full time, going over to the stands and everyone would join in. I remember him for that, but his goal tally just wasn't quite good enough. He was sold off to Reading for, I think, $3 million that we got for him, and we paid barely anything for him. Yet again, Wolves doing decent transfer business, getting good money from a player who was quite average for us, in all honesty. But he's since been sold on to Millwall, where he still plays. Yeah, not too bad. I'm just still amazed that we got the amount of money we did for him. He was a decent player for us, but yeah, never really hit the heights. Up next was actually my favourite player at the time, James Henry, who is now at Oxford United, still plying his trade in League One. Decent player for us, conjured up some really good moments. One that particularly sticks out to me is that equaliser against Bolton in the last minute. An absolute 30-yard screamer. Goal against Leyton Orient as well, I think, in the 3-1 win. He had his moments, James Henry, but yeah, in the end, another one of those players where things just sort of petered out. Average form, falling out of favour with the manager, and then obviously he was never going to play under Nuno. So, yeah, shame with how things worked out for him, really, because he was my favourite player in the League One season. But yeah, was just never really good enough to push us towards the Premier League. But he's done well at Oxford. He finished joint top scorer in their first game. He's played over 100 games for the club, so he's definitely carved himself a decent career there, and I think it's deserved. He was a good player for us. But he was sort of just that Championship Upper League One quality player that a lot of the team was at the time. It was just an average Championship team, and he was never going to be good enough to get us to that next level. I think Kenny Jackett was probably the only manager who really got the best out of him. After Jackett left, he really struggled to make an imprint on the team, and that was sort of when things started going downhill for him. So yeah, a real shame to sort of see things go a bit pear-shaped for him, because I really liked him. And I think a lot of other Wolves fans did as well. I remember him being really popular. So, yeah, real shame about it. But, hey, what can you do? Right, if we move on to the used substitutes then for this game, we'll move on first to Joe Mason, who was a big purchase for us. I think we signed him in January when we really needed a forward. And the market was very slow. We just needed to spend money on someone. And we paid $3 million for Joe Mason from Cardiff, which at the time was under Steve Morgan was quite a considerable sum of money, considering we opted out of paying $3 million for Callum Wilson a couple of seasons before. So make of that what you will. He was a okay player for us, a bit like some of the others. He had his moments, brilliant goals against Birmingham, Aston Villa as well. He had times where he really did look like he could be a good player for us. Had a fantastic finish on him. Genuinely, like some of the goals he scored, you thought, this guy's really got some fantastic finishing ability. He could have been an excellent player, but again, just never really worked out for him. He had a lot of injury problems. He went to the MLS, I think, with Colorado Rapids. It didn't work out there. He had a couple of loan spells. I think he had one with Bristol City. And in the end, just things didn't really work out for him. His career sort of went downhill, and it was a real shame, really, because he started well under Zenga, but injuries just really, really damaged his chances. And he's currently at MK Dons. He played there last season, and they re-signed him for the start of this season after he was as a free agent. So, maybe not the career that Joe would have wanted, but he had his moments at Wolves, but injuries just really sort of stumped his career. Up next, what a player. What a player this guy was. Helder Costa. Unplayable this season. Absolutely unplayable. This was his real breakout year, and probably our first breakout continental star of the Fosun era. The first Portuguese player that really took Molineux by storm. He was just so good. He was tricky. He was quick. He was direct. He was entertaining, and that was the most important thing. He was entertaining. We all speak about the potential goal that he could have scored against Liverpool, where he dribbled past most of the team and then put it wide, but the goal against Cardiff where he sat players down, from start to finish. I think he got his first goal against Barnet in the League Cup, if I remember correctly. Again, quote me if I'm wrong, I'm just going off memory here. But I mean, he was just unreal. He was on another level. This was our first real player where we thought, wow, this is the quality of player Fosun are bringing in. Signed him permanently in January for 13 million, which again at the time was like a ridiculous amount of money. I remember Jeff Shee saying that Helder is my boy. Brilliant first season, but then second season, he got injured and he never came back the same player. And it was a real shame. It just completely dropped off. His work rate just went. He just didn't have the same spark that he did when he first arrived at the club. And we actually managed to sell him on to Leeds for, I think, 2 million profit. I think 15 million Leeds might have paid in total for him, which, again, brilliant business by the club. I mean, some of the profits that we made on players is pretty impressive. wasn't the same. You know, when Nuno came in, we thought, right, let's, hopefully revitalise him after his injury, but it just never really worked out. Premier League, he had his moments. The goal against Spurs at Wembley, who can forget that? He definitely produced some magical moments and was the first real breakout player in the Fosun era, but yet again, just didn't work out for him. And real shame, but he's doing okay at Leeds at the moment. I think he's scored a couple of goals, or maybe one goal this season. Not really a first team player, but yeah, real shame, Costa. Could have been a world star, but just wasn't meant to be. Up next is another player which very much brought the Portuguese flair. He was a bit of a sign of what was to come in later years. Joao Teixeira. He came on as a sub in the Rotherham game and was superb. His technical ability, his vision, just everything he looked like he was going to be a really, really good diminutive midfielder, creator to have in there. But in the end, I think that was his downfall, is his diminutive stature. Struggled to compete with the physicality of the Championship, inconsistent form, and he sort of really dropped off after the first few months. And since then, his career has just been it's shocking, really. Real downward spiral. And he's now playing for Chaves. I don't know how you pronounce it. My Portuguese is not fluent by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, real shame. Just a bit too lightweight. Didn't really have the work rate that was suited for Zenga. Maybe under Nuno he could have been better used as a creative player. We've seen him do really well with Moutinho and Neves, so who knows? If he'd have joined when Nuno did, he might have had a more successful Wolves career, but we will never know, which is a shame. But yeah, Joao Teixeira, a real sort of one for the history books, really, in terms of players that you thought were going to be world beaters that just turned out to not be world beaters. Right, and we'll finish off this video with Walter Zenga, who is currently unemployed after being replaced at Cagliari. Very charismatic, very genuine, very passionate, and he definitely got the Wolves fans on board. Even though he dragged us into a relegation battle, and as a manager he was pretty at points tactically just not good enough at all. He masterminded a 2-0 win over Newcastle. I'll always remember that game. Romain Saïd's debut, by the way. Absolute blinder he had in that one. But yeah, just never really looked like he had the tactical ability to get us promoted, unfortunately. A lot of the Wolves fans took to him. He still commented a couple things on Wolves posts last season and things like that. So he definitely loves the club. He was very much a fan's favourite, but he just wasn't good enough as a manager to push us forward. Things started off pretty well. I remember we were third quite early on in the season, and we were playing good football as well. But I think it was one of those false dawns where you think, oh my god, this guy's actually gonna do all right. But yeah, it just wasn't meant to be. I remember being very underwhelmed when we announced him as the manager, because we'd sacked Jacket and then we got Zenga in, and I looked at his CV and I was like, guy's had 15 clubs in 15 years. It didn't fill you with confidence, and in the end it showed true. He just wasn't good enough. But Wolves fans will remember him fondly for just being a bit of a laugh, and he was just funny. And he called us the biggest club in Italy, which I think he meant as though we were popular in Italy. Very interesting bloke. So that was Fosun's first 11. Wow, fascinating, isn't it? Really, how far we've come as a club in the space of 4 years. It's amazing to think back at the team we had. A lot of people will look back at this team as sort of the hallmark of how much we've changed as a club. I think that it's good to sometimes look back and realise how fortunate we are at points to see the players that we are seeing. Although that doesn't excuse some of the poor performances, I will say that. But of course, if you did enjoy the video, drop a like down below. If you've got any feedback, then leave it in the comments as well. It's my first time presenting, so I'll be happy to take on any constructive criticism. Make sure to follow Talking Wolves. All their social media links will be down below in the description. You can find them on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course YouTube, where you're watching at the moment. My Twitter will be in the description as well, so you can drop me a follow for terrible footballing opinions. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope everyone had a brilliant New Year's 2021. Should be a good year for us. hopefully some exciting transfers in the January transfer window as well. So we'll keep our eyes out for that. Of course, make sure to keep up to date with all the Talking Wolves news. We'll be bringing you all the transfer news and updates, rumours as the window progresses. But I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope to see you soon.